Hey everyone, hope you're doing well and again enjoying just the beautiful weather we have today. It's Thursday and again glad that I get to connect with you. This week we are going to be looking at the topic of pornography. This is a little bit of a heavier topic, and so I just want to give kind of the warning up front. If you're a student watching this, this might be a better one to either have your parent with you or tell your parents and let them watch first. Parents, if you're watching this, this might be a good one maybe just to watch on your own prior to, again, walking or obviously discussing it with your student. So just to give that warning up front. We're going to try to cover this well and obviously do that tactfully, but just to give some warning to that. So as we dig into this topic, I want to first of all try to define pornography, which is somewhat of a challenge, but today focus on really pornography as the issue that it is, talk about its prominence, and talk about really its impact that it is currently having. So tomorrow I'm going to have another video and we'll talk a lot more about kind of the practical aspect within a family on how do you work through this, how do you encourage your students, how do you talk about this, and that'll be the focus of tomorrow's video. But when you think about pornography, how would we define it? There's several different definitions you can come across on the webs, on the internet, different sources, but one of the best that I enjoy and I think it captures really what pornography is sexually explicit forms of media whose purpose is to elicit sexual arousal. Again, the thing I like about that definition is we could make an argument that pornography is everywhere. It's in every type of media form practically in most situations now. But when it comes to what really constitutes pornography, I think it has a primary intention to elicit arousal in some capacity. And so we're going to kind of work with that definition. So when we talk about pornography, that's where I'm coming from and where we can kind of settle on. Resources that I'm utilizing for this are quite a few, but two in particular that I want to reference that I think are excellent resources. One is put out by Josh McDowell, and it's called The Porn Epidemic. And I'm going to attach that PDF actually to our files portion on our Facebook page. Really encourage you to look at it. It's pretty extensive. He has at the end of it a list of a number of resources and different types of resources, but I think it gives a really good summation of the issue of pornography, a lot of stats associated with it, and again, just some good encouragement for us. So Porn Epidemic is the first one. The second resource that we'll get to at the end of this time is a website that's called Fight the New Drug. And this isn't a Christian website, but it is put out by a group of individuals who, again, recognize the danger of pornography and recognize just how negative its impact is in the world. And so when we talk about the impact of pornography, we're going to reference that one quite a bit. I want to start though with this quote by Craig Gross. He was kind of the founder of an organization called XXX Church, which again was created to help individuals who struggle with pornographic addiction. And he says this: "When I was a kid, I had to work really hard to find porn. But today, kids have to work really hard to avoid porn." I think that really captures very well what we find in our culture today. Pornography is prevalent. It is prominent. Back in 2018, there was 2.3 billion pornographic web pages on the internet. Again, I can just imagine, and it's not unrealistic to assume that number has only increased since that point. According to a Huffington Post, again, article, porn sites get more visitors each month than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. Again, we could probably throw in some other sites as well that also would increase that statistic. So pornography is prevalent, and we can just imagine why that's the case. You think back 30 years ago, the form and the mode that pornography took was often magazines. Maybe when the internet first started, there were some options. Maybe it was literature just in general. But now with the advent of internet, with the advent of smartphones, there's so much access to pornography. And legitimately, it's not an exaggeration to say that within 10 seconds, any one of our students, any one of us could access pornography if we knew where to look and how to go about doing that. It is readily available. It is, again, a huge, huge part of our society. So with the readily available aspect of pornography, it shouldn't surprise us. In a survey done by Family Safe Media, they surveyed 19,000 participants, and 90% of 8 to 16-year-olds had already been on a pornographic website. We take that a little bit further in a Barna study that was done back in 2016 called the Porn Phenomenon. They found that 81% of Christian men who were ages 13 to 18 actively were seeking out pornography. Again, we might think maybe this is primarily just a male issue, and yet from a number of sources, 1 in 3 porn viewers are women. And it's not just women who are, again, older. In fact, it's teen girls and young women are significantly more likely to actively seek out porn than women who are 25 years old and above. That's according to the National Center on Sexual Exploitation in a study they did back in 2017. So we see porn is prominent, it's prevalent, and it, again, impacts both sexes and impacts a number of ages. It's especially prominent for teens, and we know it's so accessible, and so it is around us, and it is very common in our culture right now. It's interesting, again, in a study also put out through that Barna poll, the Porn Phenomenon, they found out that 32% say viewing porn is usually or always wrong, compared to 56% who say not recycling is usually or always wrong. In other words, more people felt like it was a greater moral travesty to not recycle than it was to watch pornography. I think with its prevalence, its prominence in our culture, there's definitely been a shift in society's view of pornography and its merits and, again, how it is viewed. And so we have to recognize it is a prominent issue. Speaking about its impact, though, and we'll try to wrap this up quickly, pornography has a massive impact on individuals who view it, on students, on adults, on anyone who partakes in it. Again, Fight the New Drug is a great website that digs into this, so I would encourage you to check that out. But a few ways that pornography impacts a user of it. First is just biologically. Okay, when we think about somebody who views porn, several things happen to them. Their brain, in some respects, starts to get rewired. As they view porn, there's dopamine that's released into their mind, and that's a pleasure hormone. That's something that, pleasure chemical, it's something that they enjoy. And obviously, if you enjoy something, you want to keep on going back for that. But our bodies are created in an amazing way that God doesn't allow us to have too much dopamine because it would kill us. And so there's other chemicals that compound that stop that to an extent. And so in order for you to have that same level of pleasure, you need to have something else that's going to get that dopamine back up. And so we see in pornography that, again, it becomes very addictive because people want to experience that dopamine high, and so they continue to go back and go back and go back. They continue to view it in greater extent or different types of pornography, all with the hope of, again, getting to that same place. And we realize just the impact that can have on how they go through life. That as somebody who views pornography and they see it as a means of feeling pleasure, of happiness, of contentment, then that starts to implicate everything else. That instead of just being something that they do occasionally, it becomes a driving force for how they spend their time and just how they view themselves and the people around them. Very just a little bit explicitly, but when it comes to sex and biologically how pornography impacts things for men, again, their view of what arouses them is directly impacted to pornography. As they view a woman or anyone from a pornographic site and they see handcrafted beauty, as they see something that they get to choose what exactly that individual looks like, their view of beauty and their view of what they're attracted to can change, and it can have a wide variety of impact, even to the extent of being able to be aroused in the first place. Pornography has also been linked to people experiencing depression. Again, that the draw towards pornography can isolate and make people feel lonely, and yet they feel like they're not doing that. It can be incredibly deceptive. And so, again, many studies have been done to reinforce that as well. We think socially the impact that pornography has, it absolutely changes how we view the opposite sex. When we see people, do we see them or do we see what they could offer to us? And pornography kind of retrains us to view people in that way, more of a consumer mentality as opposed to valuing people for who they really are. From a bigger perspective and looking at a number of studies done, pornography is directly linked towards sexual violence. Again, the increase in rape is an equivalent increase as well to pornography usage. That there's often a correlation because we are devaluing human life when we're looking at them from a sexual fantasy standpoint as opposed to who they truly are as a human being. Human trafficking has also been, directly related to pornographic use, that child exploitation, all of those things are perpetuated and are fueled and often funded by pornography. Lastly, we just think spiritually. I look at Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew and just his instruction that anyone who looks after a woman, I think it's okay to replace this, anyone who looks after a man with lustful intent in his heart has already committed adultery. And if we're going to live life pleasing to Jesus, what we look at, what we lust after, again, we need to be obedient to Christ. And if we're not, it's going to impact our fellowship with him, and it's going to, again, be something we look to that instead of Christ, which will never help us be at a place that we need to be at. So again, pornography is prominent, it's impacting, and we need to be mindful of that. And my hope in sharing today is not to scare you, but to raise the awareness of that. And tomorrow, as we dig into this, that we really recognize we need to have these conversations, and hopefully you will feel equipped on how to actually do that. Hope you have a great day. And again, if any questions or comments, please let me know.